This Week in Richmond is made possible in part by Dignity Memorial, caring for our communities with a network of funeral homes and cemeteries in Virginia and throughout North America. More information about Dignity Memorial's providers is online at dignitymemorial.com. The Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the voice of the Virginia business community, working in legislative, regulatory, and political arenas to promote the free enterprise system. Information at vachamber.com. Virginia hospitals and health systems provide jobs. They support our economy and promote public health. Local hospitals are always open to help people with unexpected health needs. Having a stable healthcare network is vital. Virginia hospitals are our lifeline.
I just received a letter from a student who thanked me for instilling the love of math in him. That's why I teach.
Brought to you by the Virginia Education Association, because a good education is good for everybody.
Additional support is provided by these sponsors. And by the members of Virginia's public television stations. Thank you.
Welcome to This Week in Richmond, and a very special welcome back to Secretary Dietra Trent. We're Secretary of Education. Appreciate your being on with two folks with areas of education that they work on to talk about education issues.
Thank you.
With Dr. Brenda Long from Career and Technical Ed and Bob Hundley from the school boards. And we want to start with you, Secretary Trent, to help lay out for us and for our viewers what are some of the biggest challenges, opportunities that you see even the next 2 or 3 years? We may toward the end of the show, or whenever you all want to, talk about the immediate, but as you step back and look out a little distance, what are some of the biggest challenges in public education in the Commonwealth?
Well, thank you, David, and thank you again for having me again. I appreciate this opportunity to share the governor's education agenda, what he has done and what we have to do going forward. We have about 6 more months in this administration, maybe a little over 6 months, and we're still pushing really, really hard. I want to thank Brenda and Bob for what they do. Bob with the school board certainly do make my job a lot easier as I work with school board members across the state, and Brenda with CTE. It's obviously a really big area that the governor has been focused on, so we appreciate all that you all are doing to help us in this administration. I want to begin by just saying what we have done and where we were when we came in. When the governor ran, he went around the state and talked to a lot of people in education and just kind of heard some of their concerns. He came in with a big and a bold agenda, wanting to do a lot, and I think he's made a lot of progress in that regard. As he went around the state, he heard a lot about standards of learning and how many our kids are being over-tested. These high-stake tests were stressing teachers as well as the students out, and so the first thing that he did when he came in was to reduce the SOLs by 5. We still have a lot of tests. The federal government only requires 17. We are still testing ours, have 26 tests. But we've made progress in that regard. We have the SOL Innovation Committee, which is made up of legislators, educators, advocates, business people who are really looking at how we're testing our students now and what's the relevant way and the best way to assess individuals' strengths or weaknesses. We also looked at the budget. We put $1 billion in new funding in education. We provided a lot more flexibility to school divisions to use that money. The governor stressed a lot about innovation and making sure that we have more innovative models. We have redesigned our high schools to make those more relevant to 21st century and the new Virginia economy. So we've done a lot. We've accomplished a lot. We are looking now at our standards of quality and our standards of accreditation. We have a lot of a long way to go with that. Well, not really a long way, but we still are in the process of doing that.
Right.
We have the ESSA, which is the federal standards that we're putting in place. So we do have a lot on our plate right now. But I think the largest and the most significant challenge in public education, and this is a national challenge, and that is the teacher shortage. We, unfortunately, a lot of people, the number of people who used to go into the field are no longer going there. We have a huge gap. Last year, as of October 30th of last year, 2 months after school started, Virginia was down 800 teachers around the state in some of our most critical areas like math and science and students with disabilities. So that's a huge area where we've got to, it's almost at a crisis point where we've got to start looking at how we're going to engage our youth to go into that field, and how we're going to continue to build that pipeline. So we're looking at that. We have, not only is that a problem, but within that problem, there's an even greater problem, which is diversity. Our students, we have about 1.3, 1.4 million students in Virginia. About half of them are minorities, but only about 15% of our teachers are minorities. And so we've got to also increase our diversify our teacher pipeline. So that's probably the largest thing that we have, and that this state as well as the country is going to have to tackle and figure out how we're going to staff our classrooms, how we're going to treat our teachers to ensure that we have more people going into the field. And then the other thing is what we've been dealing with for probably the last 50 plus years, and that is the achievement gap. The achievement gap between minority students and majority students is still pretty significant. So that's another area that's really has been a challenge and continues to be a challenge, not only in Virginia but nationally.
Well, thank you for that quick review, and also then laying out some of the biggest challenges. Brenda and Bob, you all enter in and comment on what you're seeing too as biggest challenges.
One of the biggest for career and technical education is the teacher shortage. In Virginia, career and technical education ranks in the top 5 of the shortages in Virginia. So we do have to do something, whether it's working with our higher education, colleges, universities, to increase or upgrade our teacher preparation programs. But to do something in high school, we have a program within career and technical education of Teachers for Tomorrow that lead them into those opportunities to go into teaching. But it's a real shortage for career and technical education, and we're looking at career switchers. There's opportunities for folks from business and industry to come into the classroom. We want the best qualified, and our business and industry folks have those technical skills. It's just working with them that they get those instructional best practices to use with students. And then the other challenge, I think, for career and technical education is that we want to continue to have these rigorous programs for students, those that are going to meet the high demand, high wage, high skill jobs. We've got to keep those programs moving. We've got to keep them on the forefront. And so that parents see the opportunities. Our STEM programs, Governor STEM Academies and Health Science Academies, a lot of those jobs are going to require less than a 4-year degree, but they certainly require some education beyond high school, as do most jobs. And the opportunities to go into those STEM job areas with an associate degree or an equivalent to a 1 or 2 year certificate or industry certifications. So we've got to continue to keep that on the forefront and build the awareness with parents. Our national PTA has partnered with our national ACTE Association on this to make parents more aware of the career options for students. So highly effective career programs continue with those, and to build on those, and to build on those that certainly they have to relate to the workforce. Cybersecurity is a big concern, and we will be rolling out some CTE courses this fall in cybersecurity, so our students get that foundation as they want to move into those fields.
Good. Bob?
I think Secretary Trent and Dr. Long have both hit on the issue that the Virginia School Boards Association sees as the most significant challenge that we have, and that is the teacher shortage and how you best deal with that. I think General Assembly and the Governor's Office worked closely recently in past sessions to deal with some of the criteria that CTE teachers must have in order to become teachers in Virginia. I think we're probably going to need to look at other alternatives that we might be able to work together with the Governor's Office on in terms of how can we best facilitate teachers of regular ed classes to best be utilized by the public school system. Do we create obstacles in our current format as far as how we assign credentials to our teachers? And is there another way that we could use career switchers more effectively?
Yeah.
What about the military in Virginia and the number of people coming out of the military? Do you see those going in, whether in regular subjects or career and technical ed or helping? Is there any prospects of hope there for?
Yes, the Department of Education just rolled out a program this year to reach out to military persons who are coming out of military and transitioning into teacher jobs. So that's definitely an option. I want to just mention to Brenda, and thanks to Brenda and her organization, I believe about 2 or 3 years ago, we were able to pass legislation to allow adjunct faculty to teach CTE in our high schools. So if a person is a military person and he is an engineer or he is someone who works in cybersecurity, the Department of Education will work with them on licensing and kind of, I mean, it's not that they would not, curtail the criteria in any way, but they would not have to go through the rigor that a normal person would have to go through because they're already in the field. So they would work with them in order to get their license and to go into the classrooms to teach. So we're definitely looking at stuff that we can do to make it a little easier. The Department of Education is also looking at ways where we can do a better job of using our resources that we have and expanding the resources that we have, particularly in our high need areas like math. Is there a way that we can use 2 or 3 teachers to teach more students at one time in math instead of trying to get, 5 math teachers to teach 30 or 20 students at a time? Is there a way that we can get 2 math teachers to do that in a more comprehensive way? So the Department of Education is really looking at ways that they can actually use the current resources, but to use it a little bit more effectively in terms of how we dispatch our teachers across the localities. Brenda also mentioned cybersecurity, which is a huge initiative of the governor. He is chair of the National Governors Association, where he speaks to all the governors around the country. And his initiative is Meet the Threat, and it's a cybersecurity initiative. And so he's put a lot of emphasis on that. Last year we were able to do 32 cybersecurity camps across the state in some of our high need areas and these were for middle and high school students. So we're trying as much as possible to get them exposed to the careers, the high demand careers. Brenda also mentioned just getting students more involved and making sure that they understand that there is a need for a post-secondary credential. And the governor was able to get almost 16 million in the budget to establish a New Virginia Economy Workforce Grant. And that's a grant where students can actually go to a community college, receive a high demand certification, and we worked with the community colleges around the state. The 23 community colleges identified 124 different areas which they will provide certifications that are high demand in their particular area. And students can go to that school. They will pay 1/3 the cost of the certification, and the state picks up the other 2/3. So that's an opportunity for students who do not want to go to a 4-year university, who just want to receive certification or license in a high demand area, that they can take advantage of that.
You mentioned something that I don't know if I've heard before. I want to make sure I heard it right, go back and revisit it and think about the schools. And that is the potential for, in some subjects, teachers teaching more than 25 or 30 students. I would imagine from the parents like small classes, but many of them then have students who graduate high school and go to university, and they sit in an auditorium with hundreds in some of the introductory courses in fields. So, Bob, let me ask you, and then all three of you involved, is there something there that you're in Hanover County, but you're also working with school boards in your capacity across the state, where that could be something that would be tested out, tried out in some schools to see about having larger classes in some algebra or some subject?
Sure. Well, I certainly think that with respect to all of the advances in technology that we've had over the past decades, we certainly need to do all that we can with respect to virtual learning and take advantage of those opportunities wherever possible. And that may be an opportunity to increase pace. I believe Secretary Trent hit on some of the things that the Governor's Office and DOE are currently working on with respect to redesigning high school. I think that provides us with an opportunity to look at ways that we could more effectively instruct people with credentials as opposed to seat time and credit hours. So I think those are opportunities that I think are very exciting for Virginia School Boards Association with respect to the redesign of high school and what that's going to look like. And I know there'll be opportunities for people to weigh in on those public hearings during the summer for that particular issue with respect to accreditation, profile of a graduate, all those types of issues coming out of DOE.
And we're certainly looking at that, the profile of the graduate and redesign of the high school. And as we see the opportunities for students there, increased opportunities for work-based learning, that is going to help to them to feed into the workforce with some skill after their post-secondary career. So there's a lot of opportunities that career and technical education will be looking to on that profile. But as we look at work-based learning, internships, mentorships, job shadowing, and so forth, and the opportunities for career exploration for grades K-12, that's going to help our students, I think, to make some very good decisions about their career as they go through their high school career, and then be able to go right into what that career is after high school, whether, as we said, we know they need some post-secondary training after that, whether it's 1, 2, or 4-year degree, but at the end of the day, we want them employed. Mm-hmm. Every parent wants their child to have a job at the end of the day, you know, that career, whether it's going to be that college route, or we talk college ready and career ready, but it's really career ready to be competitive in that workforce and in that job market.
Exactly.
So virtual learning, using technology, is that something that there's some growing consensus, you might say, on?
Definitely. We had a bill in this year that would expand virtual learning across the state. Our bill was competing with another bill. Unfortunately, our bill did not get out of the House. And the bill that we were competing with, the Attorney General ruled it as unconstitutional, so we did not. The governor vetoed that bill, so we are very concerned about that. We worked on that bill for a year, and we worked with the patron of the other bill consistently, trying to actually come together and to work together and to come up with a viable option that everybody could live with. But at the end of the day, if it's unconstitutional, it's unconstitutional. So, and unfortunately, his bill would have taken the authority away from our localities. And of course, localities have, by Constitution, have authority to do decide what's going on in their school systems. And so, it is something that we've been working on, something that we're really concerned about, and something that we'll continue to push in terms of providing high-quality virtual education throughout the state. And our bill would have done that, but unfortunately, it didn't make it out.
And Bob, is that something that school boards weigh in on as well?
Yes, David. The Virginia School Boards Association created a virtual learning task force several years ago and put together a bunch of folks that all had stakes with respect to virtual learning. I think the main issue for Virginia School Boards Association is, what does a good quality virtual learning program look like? What should it look like? What is a good virtual learning class? How is that staffed? How is that managed? All those types of questions. I think once we can get our arms around that particular issue, I think we can perhaps move forward with getting that used more commonly throughout the Commonwealth.
So in our closing 4 or 5 minutes, 2018 session will be here soon. Will not be in the General Assembly building, but maybe they'll call the Pocahontas building, will almost be nicknamed the General Assembly building for 4 years. The governor's term would be ending, but you're passing things on. What do you see then as some of the biggest opportunities or challenges in the 2018 session of the General Assembly? Bob, what?
Excuse me, I think going back to the issue of the DOE's public hearings this summer with respect to what accreditation looks like for public schools, I think those opportunities are clear. We have an opportunity, I think, to make progress and continue progress on the CTE credentialing that has occurred over the last several years. Of course, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't say that Virginia school boards are looking to have some additional funding for our localities with respect to the state portion. We're still struggling somewhat from our recession from 2007, 2008, and getting back to the levels that we were at in those years to try and help some of our more struggling communities with their teacher shortages.
Now, before involving Brenda and Dietra, let me mention, I jotted down, the Board of Education's having public hearings all around the Commonwealth that you can go on the Board of Ed site and find them. In June at Falls Church, in July at Withville and Harrisonburg, in August Virginia Beach and South Hill, and so there will be multiple opportunities for people to weigh in, and the Department of Education is, as you're saying, looking for people to come.
Absolutely.
And to have up to 3 minutes of testimony
right.
to provide at that time. What other?
I have to agree with Bob. One of the things that Career and Technical Education will be looking at is funding. We are very appreciative of what the General Assembly did this year, an increase in funding, but one of the places is that on our industry credentials for students, but the time that localities use their state funds allotted to them and any federal funds allotted, localities still are putting in from the local budget quite a bit to meet those industry credentialing assessment for students, and so that's taking a toll on some of their budgets in their career and technical education areas. So we would like to look at more funding for industry credentials for both students and teachers in the General Assembly, and then to follow, as I said, the standards of accreditations, proposals, and the profile of the graduate. We'll be looking at those.
And Secretary Trent, it's January 13th, 2018. You may be continuing your position. You may be in a new position. You may be handing it off to someone else. What would you, if you're handing it off, what would you be handing off as the big challenge and the big opportunity in the 60 days of the 2018 session?
I would have to say that the most important issues, I would have to go back to the teacher shortage.
Yes.
Okay. I would say to my successor and to the General Assembly of 2018 that if we are really serious about building this economy, if we're really serious about the future of Virginia, then we have to invest in our schools and we have to invest in our teachers. And without good quality teachers in our schools, they are the ones that's going to shape our future. They're the ones who's going to be in these businesses. They're the ones who are going to be in the General Assembly and in the Governor's Mansion. We've got to do a better job by what we're doing for our schools and our teachers. We've got to provide them with raises. We've got to provide them with resources that they need to be effective in those classrooms. I go around the schools every single week, and these teachers are working hard. They are putting their blood and their sweat and tears into these classrooms each and every day. And so it's not a matter of teachers who are not high quality. It's a matter of resources, and those that we have in the schools that are great, they're overwhelmed by the issues that they have to deal with each and every day. There's a lot of trauma in our schools. We've got to do better by our teachers, and I think that's the greatest opportunity and the greatest challenge.
And that's where we will have to end it because of time. Thank you. Thanks to each of the three of you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
This Week in Richmond is made possible in part by Dignity Memorial, caring for our communities with a network of funeral homes and cemeteries in Virginia and throughout North America. More information about Dignity Memorial's providers is online at dignitymemorial.com. The Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the voice of the Virginia business community. For jobs, the economy, and public health, Virginia Hospitals, our lifeline.
The Virginia Education Association, because a good education is good for everybody.
Additional support is provided by these sponsors. And by the members of Virginia's public television stations. Thank you.